Hello again, Year 11. I would once again like to thank the overwhelming majority of you who are engaging so effectively with our remote learning programme. You will have noticed that this week focused in particular on your algebraic skills, and there is a reason for this. I fundamentally believe that the most important thing to be able to do when reasoning numerically, which we all do in our everyday lives, is to understand the fundamental algebraic operations and relationships that you are dealing with. I felt it would be useful once again for me to go through a number of the questions that seem to have caused you the most issues. There are 4 of them to go through this week, and I'm starting with this one here. Make t the subject of the formula q equals 2 minus 4t all over t plus 3. As soon as I see the variable that I want to make my subject in my denominator, I multiply by my denominator. So I get q brackets t plus 3 is equal to 2 minus 4t, and therefore qt plus 3q is equal to 2 subtract 4t. I want t to be my subject, so I need to move all of my t's to the same side. In other words, I'm grouping my t's on one side of my equation. I'm going to add 4t to both sides, qt plus 4t, and I'm going to subtract 3q equals 2 subtract 3q. I then factorise t out of my left-hand side. That's tq plus 4 is equal to 2 subtract 3q, and then divide both sides by q plus 4. T is equal to 2 subtract 3q divided by q plus 4. And I've successfully made t the subject of my equation. The second question I want to look at. Joy makes 6.5 litres of soup correct to the nearest half a litre. She serves the soup in 280 millilitre portions, correct to the nearest 10 millilitre. 22 people order this soup. Does Joy definitely have enough soup to serve the 22 people? Show how you decide. And then the last bit is just helping MathsWatch mark you correctly. So, I'm going to look at the total amount of soup. And I'm also going to look at the individual portion of soup. Apologies. The upper bound on my total amount of soup should make 6.5 litres to the nearest 0.5 litres, so my upper bound is 6.75 litres. If she made 6.8 litres, I would round that to 7 litres. If she made 6.5 litres, I'd keep that and round to 6.5. And equally, my lower bound is 6.25 litres. That's anything between those two values would round to the nearest half a litre to 6.5 litres. Portion is the same sort of argument as to nearest 10 millilitres. So my upper bound is 285 millilitres, and my lower bound is 275 millilitres. And I want to know if she will definitely have enough soup. In other words, I want to know the worst case scenario. So that is, I've made the least amount of soup, 6.25 litres, and people take the most amount of soup, 285 millilitres, which is 0.285 litres. And so I have, how many times does 0.285 go into 6.25? So 6.25 divided by 0.285, which is 21.9. So in other words, I have 21.9 complete bowls of soup in my worst case scenario. What that means is that Joy will be able to give 21 people a full serving of soup, but the 22nd person will get a non-full bowl. So she may not have enough soup. Now, of course, if the best case scenario happens, that is, she made 6.75 litres and people take 275 millilitres each, then she definitely will have enough soup. But in the worst case scenario, she can only feed 21 people fully and then can give the 22nd person most but not a full bowl. So to conclude, she may not have enough. The third question I want to look through looks at inequalities. list the integers that satisfy both of these inequalities. 2x plus 9 is less than 0, x is greater than minus 12. So to help me think about this, I'm going to rearrange my top inequality. I get 2x is less than minus 9 because I subtract 9 from both sides, and then I get x is less than minus 4.5. In other words, I have minus 12 is less than x, that's this equation here, inequality here, which is less than minus 4.5, which means that x can be minus 5, or minus 6, or minus 7, or minus 8, or minus 9, or minus 10, or minus 11. All of those are between minus 12 and minus 4.5, and they're all integers, that is, whole numbers. The final question I want to speak through uses a very similar skill set, but gets you to write the inequalities yourself. Mary owned n sheep, and Sam had exactly 4 times as many sheep as Mary. Mary buys 17 extra sheep, and Sam sells 8 of his sheep. Sam still has more sheep than Mary. Form an inequality in terms of n. Solve it to find the least value of n. You must show all your working. So, there are lots of things here to think about. First, though, Mary buys 17 extra sheep. So Mary has n plus 17. Sam had exactly 4 times as many sheep as Mary, so that's 4n, and then sold 8 of them. So that's 4n subtract 8. Exactly 4 times as many, and then sells 8 of them. And Sam still has more sheep than Mary. So 4n minus 8, Sam's sheep is greater than n plus 17. Now I need to solve this in terms of n. I'm going to subtract n from both sides, and I'm going to add 8 to both sides. So I'll get 25 is less than 3n, and therefore I have n is greater than 25 over 3, which is 8 and a third. Right, so n is greater than 8 and a third, but I can't have 8 and a third sheep, so if n is greater than 8 and a third, then n is at least 9 in this case. And that's why it's so important to think really clearly about the context your question is dealing with. So that's 4 questions that have been causing people some problems that I hope now have had some light shed on them. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to contact either me or your teacher for further help, and we'd be more than happy to offer it. Thank you.